57,000. So we have about 57,000 or 28% of our voters have already voted. So we're very pleased. And as Dudley mentioned, we were notified yesterday by the governor. He issued an emergency executive order instructing us to extend our early voting hours. Sorry, I've got my vacuum on. And what that means is we will be opening at 7 a.m. Everybody opens all 7 sites on time this morning, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. today, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The executive order says that we are required to be open from 7 to 7 each day, and then on the weekend, an aggregate of 12 hours. So we chose to do what we've done in the past, and that is be open the full 12 hours on Saturday. There will be no voting on Sunday, so we will have Sunday and Monday to prepare for Tuesday. So that's where we are, and everything's moving along just fine. Any questions?
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Are you having any trouble with matching signatures or anything like that?
No, we have the no match, and we started that. What this is it's implementation of a law that was passed last year and it was litigated, so it wasn't ready to be implemented until September the 8th of this year. And what it means is if a voter's social security number or driver's license that they place on their voter registration application form does not match what's verified in the system, because we have a statewide voter registration system that vets each registered voter or prospective registered voter information through Social Security, law enforcement, clemency, as well as driver's license. And if those two numbers, if they gave us the last 4 of their social or their driver's license and those don't vet, then those are set aside in the statewide system. They're coded differently, and those voters have the opportunity to correct those and be able to vote in this election. So what we do is look on a daily basis at the roll, and we began about 2 weeks ago with about 80 of those voters. And the first thing we did was mail them a letter and tell them the situation and ask them to get their correct information to us. And since that time, with the letters, and then we've been calling them on almost a daily basis, we've been able to reduce that number down to about 30. So we're continuing to attempt to contact those folks. And if they do come in to vote at early voting sites or on election day, what the policy is in Collier County is that those voters will be required to vote a provisional ballot. And then they will be told that they have until Thursday at 5 o'clock, Thursday of next week after the election, to come to our office and give us documentation that we can copy and put in the file to verify that their social and or driver's license is correct.
Thank you.
Good morning. Are you having any problems beyond the very technical aspects of the vetting of signatures and that, of people that might be aggressive at polls or intimidation or anything like that at all? I have heard some reports to that you and I have discussed.
Yeah, we've had a couple of incidents, and one of them was at Golden Gate at the early voting site over the weekend. We had an incident where there was a gentleman who was displeased with one of our poll workers, and so he more or less just came into the polling site and stared at the poll worker for a period of time, and we asked, of course he was asked to leave by the deputy, and then he threatened the poll worker, and so I was out there Saturday and I instructed that poll worker who was threatened to please go to the Golden Gate Sheriff's Office, file a report in case something should happen. So we just wanted to document that voter left and never did return and did not make any other attempts on the poll worker. That poll worker, by the way, is a poll worker who was also helping us interpret Creole for the voters.
One last question. I heard last night on a conference call that some other counties are currently having an issue, and this is just kind of an FYI to be gathering, that there are people from one party going dressed as the other party to absentee vote telling them your ballot isn't good. Here's the real ballot. I can't imagine anyone giving up their ballot, but some may be. And the ballot they're getting is bogus. So,
I haven't even heard
this
that.
is not locally here in Collier, but it's something we need to be aware of. I suspect some folks aren't stopping at anything to
Well, our voters in line have been very respectful to each other and to our poll workers. We're using comment cards this year, and our comment cards are very positive. We're very pleased with our voters in Collier County. I mean, let's face it, we've got some sophisticated voters in Collier County. Regardless of party, everybody is getting along, and I'm very, very pleased. And we have very tight controls in place to manage absentee ballots. As you all know, every absentee ballot that is returned to our office is required to have the voter's signature on the oath on the back of the envelope. And we compare every signature on every envelope to that voter's signature of record. We have a canvassing board meeting this morning at 10 o'clock. We have over 100 of those ballots or envelopes to take to the canvassing board, because the signatures don't exactly match. And as most of you know, that's part of our responsibility as a canvassing board, is to canvass those signatures and make a determination as to whether or not those envelopes with the ballots in them will be accepted or rejected. Today is the day that the law allows us to begin processing absentee ballots. So we have, as I said, about 27,000 of those. And we have a group from a local church who comes in and will be in our office tomorrow. We will be opening those ballots today, and then we have a system tomorrow whereby those are opened and separated, and we can begin tabulating. And of course, no results are released until after 7 o'clock Tuesday night. We don't even know the results. They're saved on a disk in our tabulation room. Yes, Jim?
Jennifer, do you plan to make any changes in the way you report the results on election eve, election night, compared to the primary?
On primary night, as you all know, there was an incorrect report was posted for 10 minutes. When we realized what happened, we immediately corrected it. The correct report will be posted first thing when we first have results to release on Tuesday night. It is a standard form that is produced by our tabulation system, and it will be around 7:30 that we'll be able to release early voting and absentee. Now, if we get a surge of absentees in, we may not have them all tabulated at 7:30, or we may be tabulating in the evening or even on Wednesday morning. But we will identify on that screen, on our website, on that report, the as-of tabulation time, so we can keep you informed if we have additional ballots to tabulate. Of course, we'll put that information up, early voting and absentee, what we have at that point, as early as possible, and then we will update that through the evening, and we will have precinct results the next morning put up on the website. And as I encourage you to go to our website to see the results. Of course, you can come by our office if you want to, but you'll be seeing the same thing that we place on the website. And we've been contacted by the Naples Daily News about them coming over and maybe doing some live release of data, and we're going to meet with them and see if we can work with them in some way. So that may change a little bit as we go forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate the update. Well, let's begin the program because we've got, well, we actually invited 4 candidates, but only 3 have shown up, which I understand is typical for the U.S. House of Representatives debates locally. As you all know, how we work it is we allow each candidate a 3-minute opening statement, followed by 5 minutes of questioning by all the other candidates, and then each candidate a 2-minute close. Since we're kind of informal, usually we have like a nice long table, but I think it's easier if you all would just come on up. So, Mr. Neal, come on up, Senator Saunders, and Mr. George, And then I have one microphone, but I think everybody can hear, so it depends on what y'all want to do. We'll pretend Connie Mack is right here, but he's obviously not. If I were Mr. McLaughlin, I would now make some derogatory comment.
No, I wouldn't.
So, and I like to do these things alphabetically, so we'll start with Jeff George, and then Robert Neal, and then Senator Saunders. So you can stand up here.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I want to thank you all, Tiger Bay, for hosting us here. My name is Jeff George, and I am running with no party affiliation to represent you in Washington, D.C. for the 14th District of Florida. I grew up here in Southwest Florida. My family moved here when I was 4 years old, and with the exception of 5 years that I spent in the Army, I've lived and worked here most of my life. Actually, standing in this room brings back some memories which are kind of pertinent, I think, to my experience for the election. I lived in Naples for about 2 years, and I worked here for about 3 years for an international wireless internet company. And from that experience, we had a great time going out, setting up networks all over North America, South America. We set up here networks across Europe and also in Africa. And there are two things that I took from that I have today. The first thing is I was actually doing that in the late 90s at the height of the .com boom. And one of the things that I recognized from working with a lot of companies which are no longer here today, and a lot of CEOs who are currently behind bars, is that the corruption and the greed that we're seeing causing the meltdown of the market today is endemic to a lot of ways that business is done in this country, and that needs to change. The other thing I recognized from traveling around so much was that the decisions that we make as American voters really do have a profound impact on the world. Now, if there's one thing that I know from all of this, it's that right now we're not currently being represented in Washington, D.C. We've all been suffering in recent years from a corrupt federal government that seems to be divided hopelessly along party lines. It's brought us the threat of war without end. It's brought us failed environmental and energy policies. It's reckless spending and an unregulated casino-style perversion of capitalism that seems to be based on nothing more than more and more debt. And it's time for this to change. Now, one of the things that is so important... 2 minutes? Okay.
Oh, 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
You have 3 minutes?
I apologize. Yes.
Okay.
He's new at this.
He gets 10 minutes.
Okay, you gotta give me a couple extra seconds. No, one of the things that's important is that all of us that are running up against an incumbent, we all come up here and we say, hey, I'm going to go up to Washington, D.C., I'm going to change the system, I'm going to fight corruption. The question you have to ask yourself is how do you, as voters, verify that? Now, what we're doing with this campaign is a little bit different. We're trying to get you, the voters, involved in a way that has never been done before. We're using the new media and the internet, and you see Damien back here with the camera. Everything that I do and say as a candidate, every meeting that I attend, every event that I go to, we videotape. And then we put that raw footage up for you to see up at jeffgeorgeforcongress.com. The idea is that we want to give you complete transparency and accountability into the process. And not only am I going to be doing this on the campaign trail, but as your congressman, we'll be doing this in Washington as well. So I look forward to taking your questions, and I want to thank you again for having me here.
You guys have it under control. Just keep on going. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Robert Neal. I'm a candidate for the United States House of Representatives in Florida's 14th Congressional District, and I have a very important announcement this morning. I'm very pleased to announce that in 2010 I will be running for re-election to this seat with your help. So if you haven't already voted, I'd like to earn your vote this morning, and these are the things that are important to me. I ran for this seat in 2004 and 2006. And in 2004 and 2006, both, I complained about the deficit. Folks, we have too much debt in this country. Our country has set an example for all of us that borrowing and spending is okay. Over $10 trillion in debt is how much our country owes. Your share is about $35,000 each. For a family of four, the interest alone amounts to about $600 per month. How far would $600 per month go towards providing either daycare for the children, a little bit more education for mom or dad so that they can improve their skills and get a better paying job, or maybe health care? something like that, $600 a month in interest alone for a family of four would go a long way. We have to reduce our debt in this country. There's only two ways to reduce debt. One is to reduce expenses, and the other is to increase revenues. To reduce expenses, I propose to responsibly end the war in Iraq. Now, a responsible end to the war in Iraq is not so much about when we do it, but what we do after we end the war. If we pull out all our troops and leave those people to suffer without infrastructure, without health care, and without education for their children, then we will only breed more terrorists. They will hate us, they will want to cause us harm. But if we will remove our troops and send teachers and doctors and nurses to represent us in the world, the things that we value, education and health care, then those people over time, and not in the 2-year term of a congressman, but over time, they will understand and they will become a peaceful nation and a peaceful people just like we are. They will covet peace. The other way to decrease the deficit is to raise revenues. And to raise revenues, I propose a small change to the tax code. I propose to take the qualified dividends rules and making a maximum of $10,000 per taxpayer eligible for qualified dividend treatment. That means only $10,000 of your qualified dividends each year would be eligible for the preferential tax treatment. The rest of your dividends would be subject to tax at normal rates. If we can reduce the deficit, we will have lots more resources to deal with the other things that hurt us: energy, health care, education, Social Security. Those are the kinds of things that are important to me. Look forward to your questions, and I'll look forward to answering them and visiting with you later this morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Bert Saunders. You can learn a lot about my campaign at bertsaunders.com. I have a couple thank yous. First of all, I want to thank Leslie Williams, the back there. She reported this week that I'm 49 years old. That was in the Naples Daily News. It must be true. I appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, it's really been a high honor for me to serve this area in the Florida legislature for the last 14 years and for the last 22 years in public office. We heard from Dudley Goodlett this morning. I had a high honor of serving with him for 8 years while he was in the Florida House of Representatives. And this truly is the best area of the state to represent. We have wonderful people here that really work to help each other, roll up their sleeves to help the less fortunate. And so I just want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to serve you for these last 22 years in public office. For those of you who do not know, I'm a registered Republican. I'll be on the ballot with no party affiliation. I chose to run with no party affiliation for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is I want to send a message, and I think everyone in this room would agree with the message, and that is that once the elections are over, once people have made the decision on who's going to represent them, you rightfully expect your elected officials to work together to solve problems. You expect Democrats, Independents, Republicans to work together to solve problems. Problems like energy independence, problems like immigration reform, health care reform, fixing our economy, major issues that are plaguing this country. And if these problems are not solved, the future for my children and my grandchildren and your children and grandchildren won't be nearly as bright as our future was when we were growing up. So that's the primary reason why I made the decision to run with no party affiliation. I want to give everyone an opportunity to vote on who's going to be their next congressman. Now, I'm absolutely convinced, based on the numbers, we have about 50% registered Republicans in this congressional district. A Republican will be elected. It's either going to be Connie Mack or it's going to be Bert Saunders. So for my Democratic friends, I ask you to keep that under consideration when you go into the polls. Now, what prompted me to make the decision to run was when the incumbent announced that he would be remarrying and would be living in Southern California. And I felt that he lost or severed his ties to this community, and that we deserve to have someone who was part of our community, who was invested in this community, representing us. And so that prompted me to make the decision to run. I also took a look at the incumbent's voting record and felt that he was out of step with the needs of Southwest Florida, and the nation. And I know we'll get into some questions on some of those particular issues that I look forward to addressing. But I wanted you all to know why I was running and what I would do as your next congressman. I will caucus with the Republicans, and I will work to solve the serious problems that are plaguing this country. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to serve you, and I look forward to continuing that service as your next congressman. Thank you.
Okay, the microphone. Now, what we normally do is Mr. Neal and Mr. George, you have 5 minutes or whatever to ask Senator Saunders questions, and then if there's any time left in his 5 minutes, we'll open it to the audience, and then we're going to kind of work backwards. So if you gentlemen have anything to ask Senator Saunders?
Speaking of the fact that there's 50% Republicans in this district, the one question that I would like to ask Senator Saunders is specifically what issues do you distinguish yourself from the voting record of Representative Mack?
Well, let's take a look at energy independence. I had the opportunity to run the energy bill for the Florida Senate. I can tell you we have a great policy for the state of Florida to make our buildings more energy efficient, to diversify our portfolio of renewable energy sources, more wind, more solar, more biomass, more nuclear, and other alternative fuels other than carbon-based fuels. If you take a look at the incumbent's voting record on the issues of energy independence, you'll find that he has consistently voted with the large oil companies at the expense of us, the American citizens, on issues of providing tax incentives for energy independence, for alternative fuels. He has voted against those incentives. And so I think he's out of touch with the issues of energy independence. On the issue of fixing our economy, I supported the initial bailout that was considered by Congress, and I also supported the second one, the one that had $140 billion in pork added to it to entice other congressmen to support it. I felt that it was important to support that. The incumbent voted against that legislation 3 times. And I think that his comment was that we need less regulation in the financial markets. We need less government and less involvement, less protections. And my view is that what got us into this banking and financial crisis was the fact that we deregulated the financial markets. We needed to engage in the bailout to stop the bleeding in our economy, but we also need to re-regulate in a rational way the financial markets so that we don't get into this type of mess again. So I believe that the incumbent on those 2 issues is way out of touch with the needs of the state of Florida as well as with the nation.
Mr. Neal, do you have any questions?
I'll give my time to the folks here who have questions, I'm sure.
Anybody in the audience? I have one. Reading the article in the paper the last couple of weeks about the pyramid scheme thing, do you want to address that?
I appreciate that. Kathleen was talking about my being a member of the board of directors of a company called YTV. YTV is a business travel company. It's a multi-level marketing company operating throughout the country and in 2 other countries. There are regulatory issues in California that have resulted in some litigation against the company in California. That litigation is about to be resolved, probably will be resolved within the next 60 to 90 days. My job as an independent member of the board, I'm independent of the company, is to be a watchdog for the company itself, for the shareholders, for the investors, and for the public. After the Enron debacles, the Securities and Exchange Commission requires all publicly traded companies to have a majority of independent board members to be the watchdog for the public, for the investors, the employees, and the shareholders. That's my job. I will, along with all the other independent board members, make sure that whatever regulatory issues are involved in California are resolved. And so we've made changes to the business plan to correct that. California has the most strict multi-level marketing regulations in the country. Once we're past that, we have no other issues to deal with. Companies like Amway, Mary Kay, these are all multi-level marketing companies. All of these companies have had to make regulatory changes and operational changes to satisfy the requirements in California. Those will be resolved probably within the next 60 to 90 days.
Thank you. Any more questions for?
In regards to regulating financial markets, I mean, we already have the SEC. What would you do? What other kind of regulation do you think you need?
Well, let me go back to a quick comment. There was an article in Naples Daily News, I believe yesterday morning, in the business section, that I really think hit the nail on the head in terms of the bailout and the importance of it. It compared our situation today with the Great Depression. It talked about what the government did during the Great Depression. One thing the government did was to raise taxes to balance the budget back in the 1930s, which was a huge mistake. But also what the government did back then is raise interest rates and tighten credit. There were things that the government did that really steepened the depression and the decline. Roll the clock forward, we now have that bit of knowledge So what the government is doing now is lowering interest rates, providing more liquidity into the banking system so that the banks can again begin to make sure that they're good customers, they're small businesses that finance their inventory, finance their payroll, will be able to get the short-term credit they need to continue in operations. Your question is what type of regulatory issues need to be in place. Well, number one, when I was growing up and buying my first home, I had to pass certain tests to make sure that I could pay back the mortgage. Well, what's happened over the years is that the banking industry has developed new types of credit, new types of securities, where the incentive was to simply loan to anybody who could basically sign their name. Those securities were then marketed, and with the incredible amount of leverage involved, when the house of cards collapsed, everybody went down with it. We need to make sure that there is proper regulation to make sure that people are buying their homes, they're able to pay off those mortgages. Things like that that are just common sense need to be put back into place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Summers, we're going to move over to put Mr. Fields in the hot seat. Mr. George, Senator Summers, do you have any questions for Mr. Neal?
One of the reasons that I'm running as an independent is because I want to stay, I want to keep a distance from the partisan politics. So my question to Mr. Neal would be, how would you be able to stay independent of some of the overwhelming pressure they're to put on party candidates in Washington, D.C.?
Thank you for the question. Earlier, I announced my campaign for re-election. I am keenly aware that if I'm elected as your congressman, it's because Senator Saunders did me a great favor and split Congressman Mack's vote, which means I will be represented by maybe as little as 36, 38% of the constituents in the 14th Congressional District. That immediately puts my feet on the fire. I will have to very, very quickly build consensus with my friends from across the aisle. I think I'm a big enough man to do this. I hope that my tolerance is such that I can sit down across the table, or they call it across the aisle. Maybe we should just destroy the aisle and make everybody sit at a round table. That way they can't tell which way is north or anything. But I hope that I have the tolerance necessary to sit and talk to people as intelligent human beings and compromise things that need to be compromised to get this country moving away from the course that it's taken back to a course of prosperity for all of our people and for peace in the world. Paz del mundo, they call it in Spanish. Paz del mundo. I feel like I'm in a beauty pageant. Paz del mundo. But that's how I hope to settle the problems that we're having with the partisan bickering that's going on in Washington at this time.
Any more questions for from our audience? Any questions? Actually, I have one. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
What's your background that makes you worthy of this position?
Thank you for your question. The question is, what is my background that qualifies me to run for Congress? I graduated from Riverdale High School in Lee County in 1973. I attended Edison Community College back then and the University of South Florida, Fort Myers campus. I studied business and accounting, and in 1979 I opened my own accounting practice. I prepare income tax and do accounting for small business. I think that after 30 years of doing accounting for small business and managing to survive and support my family, that there's a few of my skills that would be valuable in Washington. We have long since lost track of our dollars and where they go and why. And we need somebody who can go to Washington and begin to find the leaks, plug the holes, get things back in order, get our house back in order so that we set a better example for our people. Our people, of course, we spend. We're all in debt. We all have lots of debt. And we need to set a better example at the government level so that our people will understand that we need less debt.
That was going to be my question. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, if you want to turn the microphone over to Mr. George, you